All right. Well, I guess one thing I should probably disclaim to the audience so nobody comes in with wrong expectations. I am probably the most educated, least experienced investor you're probably going to interview on this show. So I've been reading Bigger Pockets and a whole bunch of stuff for probably the better part of over a decade now. Like back in, I don't even remember how long, a long time. But I've only flipped three houses though. So I'm more of a newer investor, but I'm really really good at surrounding myself with people who know much, building teams basically, who know things a lot more than I do. So yeah, so I guess audience, you're consider yourself officially disclaimed. I'm not here to drop real estate nuggets, but hopefully other life wisdom and overcoming adversity and things like that. So
For sure, man. 3 flips under your belt. That's cool.
well, two and a half. My third one's about to come on the market hopefully later this week. So
Okay. What were you doing before flipping, or as you're flipping currently?
I mean, really, these essentially it's been a lot of different things. But really, the big thing is I owned a cleaning company. Started with my girlfriend way back, probably 6 or 7 years ago now. Met her when she was going through a divorce, and she was from Michigan originally. I'm from down here in Kansas City, and so her cleaning some houses was kind of a way to allow her to kind of go back and forth and have that schedule flexibility she really needed. And then one day she hurts her shoulder, and it's like, well, I either got to give this up or grow this and actually start hiring people and stuff like that. So I had a small little e-commerce company at the time, basically kind of shut that down. I was like, hey, let me come on and help you out. And we started hiring people, and here we are. So
Nice. So how many doors are you guys cleaning right now?
so we're mostly janitorial. But we also ended up buying a carpet cleaning company. So I think our houses, we still have like the core ones we originally started with. So I'd say 7 or 8 houses.
Okay.
You know,
And then,
it,
so you're
so
doing
house cleaning is a
commercial.
lot more administrative burden. So janitorial was easier for us to manage, just her and I, because this was our first business and everything like that. So it was a lot of challenges.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm sure it's never easy, right? No, I don't think there's an easy
No,
business. Uh,
no,
so you guys are doing a lot of commercial cleaning then.
yeah, yeah. It was
Cool.
just a lot easier. I mean, as most business owners will know, like they'll want a schedule and then just stick to it. It's just like they want cleaning just to not even, they don't have to think about it.
Right.
It's just like
Right.
something happens and they can just go about focusing on their business. So it was a lot more administrative. You get to a set schedule. Sometimes it's once a month. Sometimes some places we're cleaning every single day of the week. And it just kind of becomes a rinse and repeat thing. So it was just easier for us. And I guess maybe that's the kind of the first nugget also I'd like to share with the audience for anybody who's newer looking to get into the entrepreneurial world. Make sure you start a business you don't mind providing the service for or doing the thing, like whether
Right.
it be building the product or providing the service or something like that. Make sure it's not something you hate, because in the beginning you're probably going to have to be the one doing it or filling in when somebody calls in sick or doesn't show up for work, or you thought you had this great hire, for a first person, just, oh yeah, it was great, and then she just never showed up. So our second employee we ever hired is actually still with us today, which is fantastic. Here we are 6, 7 years later. But I guess that's a little nugget of wisdom I can share for people. So, and I guess the same thing applies to real estate too. Project got behind, started to go a little over budget, and I was out there having to lay tile, screw things in holes, and luckily my now partner, his screwdriver, had a little flashlight so we could screw things into the house on the side at night, like those little house numbers we had to update. So yeah, learning the hard way. I don't like laying tile.
It's tough. Tile's tough, man. Ripping out tiles might even be worse, man. Uh, I've been known to do that a time or two. Now I just lay flooring right on top of it.
Yeah, yeah.
So, what made you? So you've been doing this cleaning company for a while, and you just decided somewhere along the way you want to do a flip, huh? You just want to flip a home?
All right. So, am I allowed to tell stories on here? I was
Yeah,
listening
yeah. Let's hear
to I was
it.
listening to a couple of your episodes. The guy with the creative finance was really cool, and I think he was more education than anything. So I feel like that's hopefully what I'm going to help with your listeners with, is more hopefully just entertaining stories and some little nuggets of wisdom. I'm not like a creative finance guy where I bought 50 houses when I was 22. Shout out to that guy. I need to
Right.
get connected with him because it's like that was cool. It was like, wow, holy moly, what the heck was I doing at 22? Mostly cleaning businesses, and thought I was, I had all these limiting beliefs, like, oh, I need to know a contract, I need to know a property manager, I need a real estate, I need all these things. So like, I'm just going to focus on my business. So basically, let's see, goes back a couple of years. Like I said, we didn't really enjoy running the business, so we were actually trying to sell it at one point in time. And so we had a buyer lined up who I was talking with, and he was trying to buy a property management company at the same time, and kind of break out on his own. So he was basically had a small house cleaning company. It was mostly his mom and a couple of people. So he was going to acquire us to, give her something to do and kind of grow that, that whole division of his company. And there's a reoccurring theme in my life where I'm always insatiably curious as to what people are doing and how I can help them. And then, all the extroverts out there, this is your superpower. Introverts, I know you're like, oh no, talking to people I don't know, asking them for things. Like my girlfriend's introverted. She was like, I don't know how you do it. You just ask for what you want. I'm like, I don't know. You just do it. So anyway, so I was going through, working with this guy down in Florida, trying to do some M&A transactions to roll up all these gas stations. And, we weren't getting any traction. So I was like, well, when I realized we couldn't sell the business because that wasn't working, I basically talked to this buyer and I was like, hey man, I thought I was doing this other thing. It's not working out. What if I just kept 20-30% of the company and kind of just stuck around to help you as a more of a consultant or as a partner or an advisor? So yeah, that'd be great. So those conversations went over the next couple months, and it basically ended up to where he ended up buying his property management company. He didn't end up acquiring me. I went deeper into the business, bought a carpet cleaning company. Him and I actually ended up investing in a house cleaning company together. That investment went south, and then when it did, I was like, hey man, I'm sorry. I felt like I should have done better on my part. And his property management company was really, really growing at the time. So I was like, hey man, what if I come consult for you a little bit, help you out? So I kind of came on as a management consultant, know what I was doing. I just knew how to grow small businesses. And then that role eventually turned into becoming the COO of the company. So that's kind of my foray into the real estate, where it's like, okay, now I got to see what is it like actually doing the property management? What is it like running teams, meeting contractors, all the ins and out evictions, and just every little thing, kind of just getting immersed in it all. So that's my foray into real estate, where it's just this completely unconventional path. And also, there's one of my cats might be joining us too. So if anybody who's watching this video, you might see a cat every now and then. But yeah, so that's how I got into real estate. So kind of just stumbled into it. Sorry, what was that?
Nothing. I was like, I have a 3.5-year-old actually and a 8-month-old. Both of them are pretty unpredictable, so one of them might pop up in the background too. So no big.
Perfect.
Yeah,
cats are very similar to that. Then
they're way more quiet. They might just knock something over. But so are you still doing property management?
No. So basically, that company was their biggest client was a real estate fund who was basically doing what now I'm kind of the fund I'm now launching, but we've taken their model and we're kind of refining it and giving our own twist. And so eventually they decided to bring all the doors in house, and I decided it was time for me to move on. Actually, a little bit before that, again, had met somebody. I was actually interviewing a vendor about bringing them on, and she was talking about how made this comment about something. I pulled on the string, because she was like, "Oh, right now we're doing maintenance and all these other things, and we'd like to get into new construction with this like really cool sustainable product." I'm like, "Wait, what now?" So I'm one of the CEO of the company. Of that company her name was Miss D. So her and I just started having the side conversation about this whole other thing, while my other team talked to her team about all the vendor stuff, and so we started talking that, and that kind of relationship evolved into me actually when I was kind of ready to move on. I actually ended up working for her as a property manager, as a management consultant, a little more officially. And then just kind of eventually was like, all right, time to get back to entrepreneurship, because I really missed kind of owning my own company and everything like that. So it was a good stint, just not for me.
Let me make sure I got this right. You started a cleaning company. You tried to sell it, and then instead grew it by acquired another company, more businesses, and then acquired another company, and then the person that was gonna buy it from you, you just partnered with him to help him grow a property management business, which was then acquired by a real estate fund, which you then went and worked for some time, and then decided, I don't like being employed, so I'm going to go back to entrepreneurship. And now you go flip a house?
So you're about half. You're right, all the way up until the point. The company was not acquired by the fund. So the fund just basically said, "Hey, we're not going to use you as a consultant company. We're going to start our own management company."
Gotcha.
Because they had almost 2,000
Okay.
doors, so perfectly logical move for them to bring it in house. But before that, I had kind of started working for this management consulting company, just because I was like, "Hey, that's like I thought it was really cool," and I like doing different things and things like that. Um, so but along the way, when I started working for that management consulting company, the founder of that, or the owner of the property management company, his name is Austin. Him and I had talked for a long time. But like, hey man, we're managing all these flips. Like he's managed, I don't even know how many. Let's say just hundreds of probably construction projects and rehab projects for other investors throughout his career. Because that's how he got his start. He graduated college, got into property management. Worked his way up. Worked for a couple different companies before he's like, hey, I'm going to go on my own. And then also had a construction management company on the side. So, him and I were talking for months about just like, hey, we've been doing this for a long time for other people. Let's just do it for ourselves. So that was my way of like, all right, cool. Now I have a partner I can rely on, I can trust, who's going to help show me the ropes and, kind of get me into this world so I don't lose a ton of money. But we were just always so busy working for this fund because he was buying 100 doors a month, so we just never had the time to actually dedicate to it. So when I had already left that company, we stayed in touch, stayed friends. And then when the management company and the fund brought their management in house, it's like, oh, cool. Now we actually have the space on our plates. So that's how we got into flipping, to kind of start building our own capital and kind of get our foot in the door. So. And then when I was working for the management consulting company, that's when I was like, all right, it's time to get back to, growing my own cleaning company and figure out kind of what's next for me, because I really miss being an entrepreneur. So hopefully that helped clarify the story.
Any of the, yeah, no, that's incredible, man. Was all the renovation management that you did local, or did you cross city or state lines to do that?
So we technically crossed state lines because so it's all here in Kansas City Metro. So our first flip was actually in Kansas City, Kansas, which whenever I say Kansas City, I was like, oh, Toto, right? And it was like, no, not technically. When I worked on cruise ships, everyone thought I was from Kansas, but I'm technically on the Missouri side. So we were managing, properties basically within our metro area here on Kansas and Missouri. So we stayed local because, we can still do the 1% rule. Houses you can still pick up really cheap. It's where our contractors know it. We know the city really, really well. So it's like if you're on Troost, we know if you're on the west side, all right, houses get more expensive. It's worth paying the premium. If you're on the east side, you don't want to pay that same premium. And a lot of investors have gotten kind of bamboozled by that from who are out of state. So we have that really in-depth boots on the ground knowledge. So that's where we just stay where we're knowledgeable.
Gotcha. Makes sense. Cool. So now you're currently just doing your cleaning company and flips. Is that your main area of focus right now?
Actually, my main area of focus is starting a real estate fund.
Okay.
So my girlfriend's been managing the cleaning company for a number of years. It's just kind of running smoothly. Shout out to her, and I'm really appreciative for her. Like, I'm really good at building things. Like, it's putting things together, building teams. That's kind of where I'm now. Like, I'm not the most experienced real estate investor in the world, but I'm surrounding myself with lots of people who are. So like my partner, Tyler, he's a construction guy. So there's not a single thing you could throw him into a house and him not figure out and know what to do. And then I'm bringing on some partners to help raise some capital and also be advisors. One of them used to own $77 million worth of real estate, about a decade ago, all in single family. Another gentleman owns about 100 doors here in Kansas City. He's also co-GP of a multifamily fund. So, I may not be the most knowledgeable person in the room, but I always implement the strategy of like just finding people who are far more knowledgeable than I am, and just get them excited and, find some way we can work together. So my main focus really now is just getting that fund up and running. And we are just about ready to start raising capital.
That's awesome, man. What's the primary, the mission of the fund? Is it going to be to flip homes, or is it going to be to kind of put rent them out, or what are your strategies?
So shout out to John, who, I think he'd be a really cool guest for you as well. So there's kind of what I say, there's the pre-John method, and then there's the post-John. So the fund originally was coming together because we were going to actually provide, quality rentals. And again, we know it really well. My partners have done property management and rehab management and manage rentals for a long time. And there's the issue of slumlords, like they exist in the world, and so we're trying to provide safe and desirable houses, in the kind of affordable and attainable housing space. So that's originally what we were starting on, and then we're going to flip some of these homes about 10 to 20% per year of the homes we're going to acquire. We're also going to be selling back to the city, and I go into a big long story about why we've seen that happen. It's just cities like you more. You can go on Google and you can find a dozen articles talking about how why real estate funds are the worst thing in the world, and they're the reason for the affordable and attainable housing crisis we face. And I want our fund to be a part of the changing that narrative and actually showing that, hey, we can actually be a part of the solution, not just part of the problem. So we were going to originally flip some of the houses, but now after meeting John and bringing on some other partners, we're actually probably going to be flipping most of our houses and actually doing some creative financing for our buyers. So we're going to basically try to create pathways to homeownership, kind of be the bank for them, or carry notes and things like that to basically allow people who wouldn't have otherwise had an opportunity to buy a house to actually be able to buy the house and actually give them an opportunity to build wealth in this country. And it works out well for us. We're able to be profitable and give our investors a nice return. And we're also able to help kind of better these communities and provide pathways to homeownership and really kind of be a force for good.
That's really cool, man. That's a pretty unique strategy. You know what? I know. Talked to a gentleman just last week too. That did that during the recession.
Really?
Yeah, in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. They would buy houses and do lease options or creative financing for the for the buyers. They own them for a year, and then they would sell them creative financing to like almost exclusively. They were holding notes. So then they're either renting properties out and they're property managing, or they're just servicing a mortgage note.
Yeah, exactly. So we're trying to do something very similar to that. So
that's super cool, man.
Yeah, that's really cool. I didn't think about using the lease option. Were they doing that so they could benefit from the 1031 portion? Or?
Exactly. Well, not just the 10. I mean, if you sell it inside of a year, right, your capital gains are pretty high. Whether you're 1031ing or not, you're just deferring it. You got a really high capital gains. But if you wait a year, then obviously that cuts your capital gains in half. Now it's long term. And it's pretty difficult to 1031 when you sell creative financing, especially to people that aren't creditworthy. They also probably don't have a lot of down payment, so there's not a lot of juice to 1031. You're just paying capital gains pretty much every time you receive a mortgage payment. You owe a little bit more capital gains. Gotcha. And so if you just wait a year, then it makes it, because you're just, as a practical matter, you're not going to be able to 1031, right? You're not going to be able to meet any of the 1031 rules. So you are going to pay those capital gains.
Gotcha.
But at the same time, you can sell it long term. Yeah, exactly. Keep it. Don't sell it until you've held it for a year, and then obviously, you owe a little bit of capital gains every time, but no biggie.
Well, I guess maybe we need to evolve the strategy again. And now we have the pre-John, and then there's the post-John, and then now the post-Trevor era of the fund.
Every time I talk to someone, man, in this space, I learn a little bit more myself, and like, oh man, we gotta do that, or we gotta put that in the toolbox, Yeah,
I mean, that's the goal, right? It's like, and that's kind of what I say. Like, I'm probably the most knowledgeable people out there, as a newbie. Like, I know about medium term and commercial and residential. You throw me in a conversation, like I can talk the talk, but I'm still kind of coming up the learning curve on actually walking the walk, but that's half the challenge. So, but that's also where all the fun is too. Like I'm an information junkie. Like, that's I guess that's probably one of my other superpowers. I guess is I'm insatiably curious. I'm always trying to learn things. So I guess that's another good nugget for the audience out there is just never stop learning. Like, college wasn't for me. I sent myself to a boarding school actually when I was 16. That was an early college program. Met some incredibly brilliant people. And one guy actually had I guess he had the patent for how like in the sci-fi movies, like when somebody gets wounded and like they have they spray that foam on them and it like heals the wound in the battlefield. I guess one of the kids I went to school with, a friend of mine told me that he actually created the actual real life version of that, or had some initial IP that actually went on to develop that. It's like, whoa, those are some incredibly brilliant people. And so I realized I wasn't that smart, but well, I'm decently smart, but not that smart, is what I like to say. And so, I realized I just never stop learning. So I
That's
guess that's
helpful,
one thing
man.
for the youngs out there. Just if you see something that's interesting to you, no matter what it is, just pull on the string. You just never know where that rabbit hole is going to take you. You know.
Sounds like
So
you
like
got a pretty
you, Trevor, you were just saying how like you're always just talking to people, and you never know as these nuggets you're accumulating. One day you're like, oh, I can do that. Oh, I'm going to do that, and you just never know where it's going to take you. So
absolutely, man. No, absolutely. I think the biggest superpower I've heard you talk about is assembling a team, man. It sounds like you got a pretty strong one. Bringing because at the end of the day, when you make real estate a team sport, it just blows the returns out of the water compared to what anyone can do by themselves. So that's pretty solid that you got that. Sounds like you got a pretty strong team together for this fund you're launching. What's the name of this? What's the name of this fund?
Emerald Century Capital.
And is there like a website people can go to if someone listens to this and they're interested in getting involved in the a fund that effectively is helping the affordable housing crisis?
Yeah, absolutely.
Which, if I'm
Actually, it's
understanding correctly,
affordable and
that's
attainable.
where do they go?
Affordable sometimes has a connotation of like, oh, it's like a slumlord property. So we like to say attainable as kind of that transitioning away into that new. Is like, hey, because what's attainable to somebody working in McDonald's may be different than somebody who just graduated college and it just with a software degree. So we want to be able to help people across all levels of the income spectrum. But yeah. So I'm still building. I will definitely be building a lead page. So Trevor, I'll send it over to you. You can drop it in the show notes. There will be a special page for people to go to and have a little bonus download for any kind of the newbies out there from me as well. I think we're putting together like 101 questions to ask before buying a property, and typically if you go on our website, you can find like 25 or something like that. But I want to put something together extra special for the Real Talk listeners out there. Because Real Talk. And I know that sounds like a really daunting number, but one of the nice things is like it. Some of the questions are very repeatable, and once you kind of know them, you know them. Like some of it is like, is there rent control? What are the kind of the pet policies? If you're doing Airbnb, like what are the laws and regulations? Like for us at least, where we're consistently buying again and again, like we probably only need to ask ourselves like 20-30% of the questions, but it's just nice little double checker.
Yeah.
Just to make sure you're asking yourself all the right questions, and you never know what thread it's going to pull on or what conversations it can lead. So, so there'll be something in the show notes for people to kind of visit and sign up for their email and get the free download. So
awesome. Love it, man. Cool. That's great. Well, Matt, man, I really appreciate you coming on and talking about what you're doing. I'm rooting for you, man. I got a fund that I'm launching here in the next 30 days with some partners, man, that kind of got built in similar fashion to yours. So a little bit different strategy and objective, but we'll be working parallel to each other, man. So I'm looking forward to seeing you.
Awesome.
Seeing you work.
Am I allowed to ask? I know I'm supposed to be the one being interviewed, but am I allowed to ask what your fund's about and kind of remind your own audience about what you're doing?
Yeah, no, we're doing short-term rentals, focused specifically in locales that exhibited resistance to the last recession, the Great Recession, both in the housing sector and the hospitality sector. I found that there are lots of little locations that just seemed impervious to it. They had their own little unique economy that was largely unaffected by what was going on in the greater nation. As an example, like there's some college towns out there that when a recession happens, people still go to school. In fact, it seems like more people go to school during recession because they don't have work to do, but you can always go get a student loan and go to college. Right. And then there's some locales in particular that have an incredibly faithful alumni following, huge, massive schools. Think like Texas A&M University, like these massive schools that not only draw in a ton of students in any economy, but they have a very faithful alumni following that comes back to watch their sports, that comes back to watch their kids graduate. And, I'm seeing lots of opportunity in places like that. That's just one example. There's other places that are not schools that just are really, tourist towns, like outside national parks. People still go to national parks regardless of what the economy's doing. So I've been really focusing heavily on places like that seem to like perform in any economy. The one key trait I found is that slow and steady growth. right? Like it's not
Right.
explosive growth at any time. Like when the rest of the nation is having this pandemic boom, these places are just largely still experiencing year over year steady growth in their economy and in their home prices. And when there's this incredible housing downturn or economic problem, they also still have nice, slow, and steady growth in their local economy and their local housing economy. So that's where I'm really
Gotcha.
interested in putting money lately. The returns are not as astronomical as you might find elsewhere, but they seem a lot safer.
Yeah, so I'm not as knowledgeable in the short term rental space. So if anybody listening to this and wants to kind of invest in that, definitely book a call with Trevor. He'll probably be your expert there. And that's actually I'd love to kind of follow up on that after that too, because one of the things I'm wanting to build, I'm wanting to build relationships with other fund managers who have really unique theses. So like I met another guy who is also doing Airbnb, but he's doing like very custom design experiences. Like he'll go in, buy a home, and turn it into like all Martian or alien theme or space theme or sci-fi or just like themes for the homes. Like, oh, that's really cool. It's a really unique
Hmm.
thing. So I'd love to be able to kind of connect and kind of dive a little more into your thesis. So as I meet investors who want to get into that space, but they're worried about the fluctuation of the returns, because it sounds like one of the big drivers of your fund is like instead of having these huge volatile spikes where it's like some months you'll have 99.99% occupancy, other months you'll have 50. You say in like a probably your 70-80% range of occupancy, something like that, right? You have like a tighter range.
As a general rule, I try to charge the highest dollar amount possible on any given night and still book that night. I don't get too bogged down in and it's interesting. That's a really like common metric that people look at. Like, what's the occupancy and average daily rate of this property going to be? And what happens if I drive average daily rate up? What's the occupancy going to be? And like, to be honest, dude, like trying to figure that out beforehand is complete BS. Right? It's only becomes apparent looking back. And at the end of the day, on any given night, you have a number of properties that have already booked, and the data out there is pretty ubiquitous. It's not difficult to find to know
Right.
who in your neighborhood or in your zip code who's booked for this night and who's available. What prices did the people who book at, and what prices are being advertised by the available properties, and where does my property need to fit inside of that in order to secure a booking, right? And as long as as long as that number equals profit for that night, we're going to advertise it at that rate and book it, right? Like that's it. And how the occupancy and ADR falls into place afterwards is not terribly important to me. I want to maximize the dollar rents every single night of the year, period.
Gotcha. And so one of the reasons you're not super concerned is because you're going to popular areas that as long as your pricing is right, there will always be demand for your house, basically.
That's true enough, but at the same time, you want to get the maximum dollar, right? So like
Right.
the theming is great. Like if I'm near a university, I'm going to theme it in that university for sure, right? Because I've seen that performs. Especially people returning alumni are totally into that. Like look at this A&M themed house, right? A pool, a heated pool, like providing really nice, comfortable amenities. People will pay a premium for that. Having nice staging and design that really stands out and pops, accent walls, pool tables, pinball machines, or whatever, right? Like you absolutely got to find a way to be the most standoutish property in your little locale,
Right.
and like in your neighborhood, in your zip code. And then as long as you're doing that, and I like looking for spots that don't really have that yet or don't have a lot of it, because there's some places like if you go to Disney, there's themed homes now. Like people have caught on that works,
Right.
and so now you're still dealing with a bit of a saturation problem. So going to places where there isn't too much of that is also like a point where I see a pretty big opportunity right now. It's like these people didn't realize these places. Disney's obvious, right?
Right.
There's other places like Ruidoso, New Mexico. Like anyone who just heard that right now is like, what did he just say? What was that town? Like not so obvious, but good price is good opportunity, and a
Yeah,
chance
and
to
that's the
stand out.
that's the perks of investing in your fund. It's like you know all these you do all the research and all the due diligence. Like I'm sitting here thinking like, man, this sounds exhausting. Like pinball machines and design and like, this is why I stay out of the short term rental space because it operates too much like a hotel, and it's just
Yeah,
not where our team's core competencies are. But it's fantastic. That sounds like you have those, and like so I'm just sitting here thinking, man, thank God for guys like Trevor. So when I want to go on a vacation, I can like, hey Trevor, what property do you have in this area? You got anything in here
exactly.
so I can stay at your house and your specialties and that. And that sounds like a lot of things I would have to learn if I wanted to go down that route. And it's just like, don't want to.
Yeah, it's a rabbit hole.
But
It's a rabbit hole like anything else. But it's like we said, like there's no easy business, man. It's just
right,
where do you want to spend your time?
exactly, love it. Well, I guess that's the final nugget for the listeners from Trevor to the audience right there is where do you want to spend your time and how. So
Yep.
love it.
Cool, Matt.
I'd
Well,
probably actually go
dude.
one step further too, into like how do you want to spend your attention. So that's one thing I kind of learned from Sam Harris is like your time is not your most valuable asset. It's actually your attention. And the example he gives is like imagine you're out to dinner with your
True.
friends, and one of your friends is on their phone the whole time. Technically, you're spending time with each other, but how do you feel? Like, what is your gut telling you about how that situation feels? Typically, for me at least, it's just like I can always feel disrespected or like I'm not important. So I there actually say, hey, I guess that's the final nugget for your listeners. For me, is like think about how do you want to, and how are you spending your attention, not just your time.
Hopefully not on making someone else's bank account bigger. Working on your own stuff is you feel broke and worthless at first in most cases, but then if you just stick with it, it's kind of like going to the gym every week. You will get results if you just keep
Yeah,
doing it. You will get results. You stop trading time for money one day.
absolutely. That's the goal for us all.
Indeed.
Beautiful.
Indeed. Awesome, Matt. Well, hey, thanks for coming on, man. I really appreciate you coming on, talking about what you're doing, man. And I wish you the best of luck in your journey.
Thank you, sir, and I appreciate you going down the little rabbit hole with me there, Trevor. Have a good one. Thanks
Absolutely.
everybody for listening.